After an argument, my husband kicked me out and left me at a bus stop outside the city with no money. I was about to walk the 25 kilometers back when an elderly blind woman who had been sleeping on a bench whispered, "Pretend to be my granddaughter. My personal driver will be here soon, and your husband will regret abandoning you next to the richest woman in the city." Before we continue, don't forget to write in the comments which country you're from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. The night air bit at Ilara's cheeks as she stood alone on the cracked pavement of the bus stop, the distant city lights flickering like dying stars. Her husband, Marcus, had slammed the car door minutes ago, his tires screeching as he sped off, leaving her stranded 25 kilometers from home. No phone, no wallet, no coat, just the thin sweater clinging to her shivering frame. Their argument replayed in her mind, his accusations, her sharp retorts, the way his face twisted when he said, "If you hate it here so much, leave." She hadn't expected him. Marcus had slammed the car door minutes ago, his tires screeching as he sped off, leaving her stranded 25 kilometers from home. No phone, no wallet, no coat, just the thin sweater clinging to her shivering frame. Their argument replayed in her mind, his accusations, her sharp retorts, the way his face twisted when he said, "If you hate it here so much, leave." She hadn't expected him to mean it. Ilara's breath clouded in the cold. The bus stop was a forgotten slab of concrete, flanked by a rusted shelter and a bench where an elderly woman lay curled under a tattered blanket. The woman's white hair spilled like frost over the wood, her face etched with lines that spoke of decades. Ilara considered waking her, asking for help, but what could she say? "My husband abandoned me and I'm stranded?" Pride glued her lips shut. Instead, she eyed the dark road stretching toward the city, 25 kilometers. She could walk it. She'd done harder things, raised 2 kids alone while Marcus chased promotions, kept their crumbling marriage afloat with sheer will. Her legs ached at the thought, but she took a step. A rasping whisper stopped her. "Girl, come closer." Ilara turned. The elderly woman hadn't moved, but her milky eyes stared blindly toward the sound of Ilara's footsteps. "I'm not asleep," the woman said, voice like dry leaves. "I heard everything. Your man's a fool." Ilara's cheeks burned despite the cold. "You heard us?" Thin windows in that car of his. The woman's lips curled into a faint smile. "Name's Vivian, and you're in luck, because my driver's coming soon. But I need something from you." Ilara hesitated, glancing at the empty road. "I don't have anything to give." "Oh, you do." Vivian's gnarled hand emerged from the blanket, beckoning. "Pretend to be my granddaughter, just for tonight. My driver, Thomas, will take you wherever you need. And your husband?" Her smile sharpened. "He'll choke on regret when he learns he left you beside the richest woman in this city." Ilara's pulse quickened. Richest woman? This frail, blind woman on a bench? It sounded like a fever dream, but the alternative was a 5-hour trek in the dark, alone. She knelt beside the bench, searching Vivian's face for deceit, and finding none, only a glint of mischief in those sightless eyes. Why me? Alara asked. You don't know me. Vivian's fingers brushed Alara's wrist, surprisingly warm. I know enough. You're strong. You didn't cry when he left you. That's rare. She paused, head tilting as if listening to the wind. Thomas's car is 2 minutes out. Decide now. Headlights crested the horizon, growing brighter. Alara's mind raced. Marcus would be home by now, probably smug, thinking she was begging at a payphone. The idea of him learning she'd been swept away by someone like Vivian, someone important, ignited a spark in her chest. Not revenge, not quite. Just justice. I'll do it, Alara said. Vivian's grip tightened. Good. Call me Grandma. And don't flinch when Thomas bows. He's old-fashioned. She released Alara and settled back, pulling the blanket higher. Act natural. You're family now. The car, a sleek black sedan that looked out of place in this nowhere town, pulled up with a soft hum. A tall man in a crisp suit stepped out, his silver hair catching the moonlight. Madam Vivian, he said, voice thick with concern. You shouldn't be out here. The bench is no place for you. Vivian waved a dismissive hand. I'm fine, Thomas. But my granddaughter here, she gestured toward Alara, needs a ride. Her wretched husband left her stranded. Thomas's eyes flicked to Alara, sharp but kind. Miss Alara, she said, forcing her voice steady. I'm her granddaughter. A flicker of surprise crossed Thomas's face, but he nodded. Of course. Please, both of you, into the car. It's warm. Alara helped Vivian to her feet, stunned by how light she was, like a bird. Thomas opened the back door, and Alara slid in beside the old woman, the leather seats enveloping her like a hug. The car smelled of cedar and wealth. As Thomas pulled away, Alara caught her reflection in the window, disheveled, eyes wide, but alive with something new. Hope, maybe, or the thrill of a lie she hadn't planned. Vivian leaned close, whispering, First rule, never explain too much. Let them wonder. Her hand found Alara's again. Second rule, enjoy the ride. The city lights grew closer, but Alara's old life felt farther away with every mile. She didn't know what waited at Vivian's home or how long this charade would last, but for the first time in years, she wasn't the one holding everything together. She was the one being carried. The sedan glided through the night like a silent predator, its headlights carving tunnels of light through the dark. Alara sat rigid beside Vivian, the warmth of the car thawing her frozen fingers but not her nerves, her. Every glance at the old woman beside her felt like peering into a mirror of what might come, frail yet unbreakable. Vivian's head rested against the window, but her lips moved faintly, as if conversing with ghosts only she could see. Thomas drove with the calm of a man who'd seen every twist of fate. Occasionally, he glanced in the rearview mirror, his eyes lingering on Alara with a mix of curiosity and caution. Madam Vivian, he said after a stretch of silence, shall I take you to the estate? Or would you prefer the penthouse tonight? The estate, Vivian replied without opening her eyes. Elara needs space to breathe. The penthouse is too cramped for new beginnings. Elara's stomach flipped. Estate? She'd pictured a modest mansion, maybe a gated house with a manicured lawn. But the way Thomas nodded, the way Vivian spoke with such casual authority, hinted at something grander. She stole a glance at Vivian's hands, knotted with age, yet adorned with a single ring that caught the passing streetlights, a ruby the size of a quail's egg. Realization prickled her skin. This wasn't a game. This was a plunge into deep waters. Grandma, Elara said, testing the word. It felt foreign, like a coat borrowed from someone else's life. Where exactly are we going? Vivian's eyes opened, milky but piercing. To Blackthorn Manor. My home. Your home, for now. She patted Elara's knee. Don't look so startled, child. You agreed to play a part. Now you live it. The car turned off the main road, ascending a winding path flanked by towering pines. The air grew thicker, scented with earth and secrets. Elara pressed her forehead to the cool glass, watching the trees give way to wrought iron gates that swung open as if by magic. Beyond them, the manor loomed, a sprawling Gothic beast of stone and ivy, its windows glowing like watchful eyes. Floodlights bathed the facade, revealing gargoyles perched on the eaves, their stone wings spread in eternal vigil. Thomas parked in a courtyard large enough to host a festival. A fountain bubbled at its center, the water catching the moonlight in silver arcs. Welcome home, madam, he said, opening Vivian's door first. Elara followed, her sneakers scuffing against cobblestones that probably cost more than her wedding dress. A woman emerged from the shadows of the entrance, tall, severe, dressed in a charcoal suit that screamed efficiency. Her hair was pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful. Madam Vivian, she said, voice clipped. You're late. And... Her gaze snapped to Elara, sharp as a scalpel. Who is this? Vivian leaned on Elara's arm, her weight deceptively light. My granddaughter, Elara. She's staying with us. Be kind, Helena. She's had a rough night. Helena's eyebrow arched, but she stepped aside. Of course. I'll have a room prepared. Her tone suggested she'd rather prepare a coffin. Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of opulence. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto marble floors veined with gold. Portraits lined the walls, stern men and elegant women, all sharing Vivian's high cheekbones and unyielding gaze. Elara felt their eyes track her as Thomas led them through a foyer that could swallow her old apartment whole. The air smelled of beeswax and old money. Vivian stopped at a grand staircase, her hand tightening on Elara's arm. Thomas, take Elara to the east wing, the lilac suite, and Helena. She turned her blind gaze toward the severe woman. Draw her a bath. The good salts, not the cheap ones you hide for guests. Helena's lips thinned, but she nodded. Yes, madam. Elara's head spun as Thomas guided her upward, the carpet plush beneath her feet. How long have you worked for her? She asked, needing to anchor herself in something real. 30 years, Thomas replied. Since I was younger than you. Madame Vivian. She sees more than most, blind or not. The lilac suite was a dream in shades of lavender and cream. A four-poster bed dominated the room, its canopy draped in silk. A fireplace crackled, tended by an unseen hand. Helena appeared with a tray, steaming tea, delicate sandwiches, a robe softer than anything Alara had ever touched. Bath's running, she said, setting the tray down with a clink. Don't touch the antiques. Madame values her privacy. Alone at last, Alara sank onto the bed, the mattress swallowing her like a cloud. She should call Marcus, demand answers, but the thought of his smug voice curdled her stomach. Instead, she sipped the tea, chamomile with a hint of something floral, and let the warmth seep into her bones. The bath steamed in the adjoining marble bathroom, its surface scattered with petals. She stripped off her grimy clothes, sinking into the water with a sigh that echoed off the tiles. As she soaked, questions bubbled up. Why had Vivian chosen her? What did she gain from this charade? And Marcus? Would he even notice she was gone? She imagined him pacing their cramped living room, his phone silent. Good. Let him stew. A knock startled her. Thomas stood in the doorway, holding a velvet box. From Madame Vivian. She thought you'd need these. Inside lay a necklace, sapphires set in platinum, heavy with history. And this. He handed her a phone, sleek and new. For emergencies, Madame's number is programmed. Alara's fingers trembled as she fastened the necklace. It felt like a collar and a crown at once. Thank you, she whispered. Downstairs, Vivian waited in a library that smelled of leather and secrets. Books towered to the ceiling, their spines cracked with age. She sat by a roaring fire, a shawl draped over her shoulders. Sit, she commanded, patting the chair beside her. We have rules to discuss. Alara obeyed, the sapphires cool against her throat. Rules? First, you're Alara Blackthorn now, my son's daughter, raised abroad. You've returned after a falling out with your husband. Vivian's voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. Second, you don't leave the estate without Thomas or me. The world outside is hungry, and you're fresh meat. Alara swallowed. And third? Vivian's smile was a blade. Third, you learn. Everything. How to walk in these halls without flinching. How to smile when you want to scream. How to make men like your husband beg. She reached out, her fingers finding Alara's cheek with unnerving accuracy. You're not just pretending, child. You're becoming. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced like conspirators. Alara's old life felt like a dream fading at dawn. Here, in this palace of stone and secrets, she was reborn. But into what? A granddaughter? A pawn? Or something sharper, forged in Vivian's fire? Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. Inside, Alara listened to the old woman's breathing, steady as a metronome, and wondered what price she'd pay for this new skin. Morning light filtered through heavy lilac curtains, painting the suite in soft purples. Alara woke to the scent of fresh coffee and the distant chime of a grandfather clock. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the sapphire necklace shifted against her collarbone, heavy as a promise. She sat up, the silk sheets sliding like water. Her old clothes were gone, replaced by a wardrobe of garments that looked tailored for royalty. Cashmere sweaters, wool trousers, dresses that whispered when she moved. A note on the nightstand, in elegant script. Breakfast at 9. Wear the navy. V. The navy was a tailored blazer and slacks that fit as if sewn onto her overnight. Alara stared at her reflection, a stranger with her eyes, but sharper cheekbones, a posture that didn't apologize. She practiced a smile in the mirror, the kind Vivian had described, pleasant, but with teeth. Downstairs, the dining hall stretched like a cathedral. A long mahogany table gleamed under chandeliers, set for two. Vivian sat at the head, a newspaper folded beside her plate despite her blindness. "Good," she said without looking up. "You're punctual. Sit." Alara obeyed, the chair heavy as a throne. Silver domes lifted to reveal poached eggs, smoked salmon, fruit arranged like jewels. A butler, silent, expressionless, poured coffee that smelled like heaven. "Rule 4, Vivian said, slicing a pear with surgical precision. "You eat like you belong, small bites, no rushing. Power is in the pause." She demonstrated, chewing slowly, her blind eyes fixed somewhere beyond Alara's shoulder. "Tell me about your husband." The question landed like a stone in still water. Alara's fork hovered. "Marcus? He's ambitious, works in finance, thinks money fixes everything." She hesitated. "He wasn't always like this. When we met, he carried my books across campus, laughed at my terrible jokes." Vivian's lips curved. "Love is a costume. He wore it well until it chafed. Now he wants you small so he feels large." She set down her knife. "Today, you learn the estate. Helena will be your shadow. Ask questions, but never about money. That's vulgar." Helena appeared as if summoned by the word. "This way," she said, leading Alara through corridors that twisted like a maze. They passed a conservatory bursting with orchids, a library with ladders that vanished into the ceiling, a ballroom where dust motes danced in sunlight like golden confetti. Helena's commentary was clipped. "The West Wing is Madame's private quarters. Off limits. The stables house 12 horses, all champions. The greenhouse grows pineapples. Madame's whim." Alara's head spun, but she memorized details. The portrait of a young Vivian in riding gear, the faint scar on Helena's wrist, the way Thomas lingered at doorways like a guardian. In the greenhouse, humid air wrapped around her like a blanket. Pineapples hung heavy, their crowns sharp. "She grows these herself?" Alara asked. "Plants them blind," Helena said, a flicker of respect in her voice. Says she feels the soil's truth. Back in the main house, Helena stopped at a locked door. The study, Madam Sanctuary. You'll enter when invited. Her eyes narrowed. Don't pry. Lunch was lighter. Soup and crusty bread in a sunlit nook overlooking gardens that rolled like green oceans. Vivian joined them, her cane tapping a rhythm. Afternoon lessons, she announced. Posture with Madame Leclerc, etiquette with Professor Lang, and, her smile was a secret, a surprise at 4. Madame Leclerc was a former ballerina with a spine like steel. She circled Alara like a hawk. Shoulders back, chin parallel to the floor. You are not a question mark. Alara walked the length of the ballroom with books on her head, Leclerc's corrections sharp as pins. By the third fall, her neck ached, but she didn't drop the 4th book. Professor Lang arrived with a leather case of silverware. Forks are a language, he declared, arranging them like soldiers. Oyster fork, fish fork, dinner fork. Misplace one, and you declare war. Alara's fingers fumbled, but Lang's patience was a surprise. Gentle corrections, a story about a duchess who'd once used a fish fork for steak and started a scandal. At 4, Thomas led her to the garage, a cavern of gleaming cars. A vintage Rolls-Royce waited, its chrome winking. Madam Surprise, he said, opening the door. Vivian sat inside, a fur stole around her shoulders. We're going to town, she said. You'll see what your husband sees when he looks for you. The drive was silent, the city unfolding like a jewel box. They stopped at a cafe Alara recognized, Marcus's favorite, where he networked with men in expensive suits. Through the window, she saw him. He sat with a colleague, laughing too loud, his phone face down. No worry, no guilt. Vivian's hand found hers. Watch. She pressed a button, and the Rolls window lowered. A valet rushed over, bowing. Madam Blackthorne, your usual table? Heads turned, Marcus's among them. His eyes widened, mouth slack. Alara met his gaze, her chin high, the sapphires flashing. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The valet led them inside, past Marcus's table. He stood, stammering her name. Alara? What? How? Vivian's cane tapped forward. Marcus, isn't it? My granddaughter mentioned you. Her voice dripped honey over broken glass. Such a memorable exit you made. Marcus flushed, colleagues whispering. Alara walked past, her spine straight, Leclerc's lessons alive in every step. She didn't look back. In the car, Vivian chuckled. Rule 5. Never explain your power. Let them drown in questions. That night, Alara stood on her balcony, the estate sprawling below like a kingdom. Marcus's face haunted her. Shock, then something darker. Jealousy? Fear? She touched the sapphires, their weight a reminder. She wasn't the woman he'd left at a bus stop. Not anymore. But as she turned to bed, a shadow moved in the garden. A figure, too tall for Thomas, too quick for Helena. Watching. Waiting. Alara's breath caught. The game had rules, but someone else was playing. Alara's heart hammered as she gripped the balcony railing, the cold iron biting into her palms. The figure in the garden melted into the hedge maze, swallowed by moonlight and shadow. She strained to see more. Height, gait, anything. But the night offered only rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. A trick of the light? Or a warning that Vivian's world had watchers of its own? She slipped back inside, locking the French doors with trembling fingers. The lilac suite felt larger in the dark, its corners hiding secrets. She considered calling Thomas, but what would she say? I saw a ghost in the garden? Instead, she pulled the new phone from the nightstand. No missed calls, no texts from Marcus, just Vivian's number, labeled Grandma. She typed a message, saw someone outside, then deleted it. Weakness had no place here. Sleep came in fits, haunted by Marcus's stunned face and the stranger's silhouette. At dawn, a soft knock woke her. Helena stood in the doorway, holding a breakfast tray and a garment bag. Madam requests you in the Rose Parlor at 10. Wear this. The bag unzipped to reveal an emerald green dress, silk so fine it shimmered like water. And burn those sneakers, Helena added, eyeing Alara's old shoes with disdain. They offend the marble. The Rose Parlor was a confection of pink damask and gilded frames, roses spilling from vases like spilled paint. Vivian sat at a writing desk, dictating to a young woman with a tablet. And tell the board the merger is non-negotiable. They'll fold by Friday. She dismissed the assistant with a flick of her wrist, then turned her blind gaze to Alara. Sit. You look like you wrestled nightmares. Alara sank into a velvet chair, the dress pooling around her. I saw someone in the garden last night, watching the house. Vivian's fingers stilled on her cane. Describe. Tall, fast, gone before I could focus. Alara's voice stayed steady, Leclerc's posture lessons holding her spine like rebar. Vivian nodded once. Rule 6. The estate has eyes, but not all are mine. Some belong to my nephew, Victor. He's curious about heirs. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. He'll test you. Don't fail. Before Alara could ask more, Thomas entered. The tailor's here, madam, and a delivery from Mr. Marcus. He held a small box, plain brown paper, her name scrawled in Marcus's impatient script. Vivian's head tilted. Open it here. Alara's fingers hesitated, then tore the paper. Inside, her wedding ring, the one she'd left on the bus stop bench in her fury. A note in Marcus's handwriting. Come home. We'll talk. I was wrong. No apology, no groveling, just command disguised as concession. Vivian's laugh was sharp. He thinks a trinket buys forgiveness. Burn it. Alara closed the box. I'm not ready. Vivian's expression softened, a rare crack in the armor. Then keep it. But remember, rings are circles. They trap as much as they bind. The tailor arrived, a whirlwind of pins and tape measures. He clucked over Alara's frame, muttering about excellent proportions and a canvas for couture. By noon, she had fittings for gowns, coats, even riding habits. Helena supervised, her approval grudging but present. Lunch was in the conservatory, orchids brushing Alara's hair as she ate. Vivian joined her, a ledger open beside her plate. Today, you learn the business. Blackthorn Enterprises, shipping, real estate, tech patents. I built it after my husband died. Men said a blind woman couldn't, so I did. She slid the ledger across. Read the quarterly report. Summarize in 5 minutes. Alara's eyes glazed at the columns of numbers, but she forced focus. Shipping routes, profit margins, a patent for biodegradable packaging. She stumbled through a summary, Vivian correcting gently. Confidence, not volume. Speak like the numbers owe you money. Afternoon brought riding lessons in the stables. The horse, a black mare named Tempest, eyed Alara with suspicion. The instructor, a weathered woman named Rosa, adjusted Alara's grip. Heels down, back straight. Horses smell fear. Alara mounted, the saddle creaking, and Tempest danced beneath her. 1 lap around the ring, then 2. By the 3rd, she wasn't gripping the reins like a lifeline. Back at the manor, Thomas intercepted her in the hall. "A call for you, Miss Alara, on the house line." He led her to a small study, the phone ancient with a coiled cord. Marcus's voice crackled through. "Alara, thank God. Where are you? I've been to the police." "I'm safe," she cut in, Leclerc's poise in her voice. "With family." "Family?" Marcus laughed, brittle. "You don't have—" "Grandma sends her regards." She hung up before he could sputter more. Dinner was formal, candlelit, with guests. A shipping magnate, a tech mogul, their wives dripping diamonds. Vivian introduced Alara as my granddaughter, returned from abroad. Questions came. Oxford? No, private tutors. Married? Briefly. The wives cooed over her dress. The men eyed her like a stock tip. Alara navigated with Lang silverware rules, pausing between bites, letting silence do the persuading. After dessert, Vivian pulled her aside. "Victor's here, in the library. He wants to meet you." Alara's pulse spiked. The nephew, the shadow. She followed Vivian through dim corridors, the library doors looming like a judge's gavel. Inside, a man leaned against the fireplace, tall, lean, with Vivian's cheekbones but colder eyes. Mid-40s, tailored suit, a smile that didn't warm. "Victor," Vivian said. "Alara, my son's daughter." Victor's gaze dissected her. "The prodigal. Abroad, was it? Funny, I'd have heard." His voice was silk over steel. Alara met his stare. "Some family keeps secrets." Victor's smile thinned. "And some invent them." He stepped closer, offering a hand. His grip was testing, fingers pressing for weakness. "Welcome to the game, cousin." Vivian's cane tapped. "Enough." Elara's tired. Victor released her, bowing mockingly. Of course. Sleep well, cousin. The estate's full of surprises. That night, Elara found her door unlocked, though she'd bolted it. On her pillow, a single black feather. No note. She burned it in the fireplace, watching the flames devour it like a secret. Lying in bed, she clutched the wedding ring box. Marcus wanted her back. Victor wanted her gone. Vivian wanted... what? A protege? A weapon? The feather's ash lingered in her mind, a warning written in smoke. Outside, the garden was still, but Elara knew better now. Stillness was just another kind of watching. Elara woke before dawn, the black feather's ashes still ghosting her dreams. She dressed in silence, charcoal trousers, ivory blouse, hair twisted into a knot that felt like armor. The wedding ring box stayed in the drawer, unopened. She wasn't ready to wear it, but she wasn't ready to burn it either. Some choices needed time to ripen into decisions. Downstairs, the manor hummed with pre-dawn industry. Maids polished silver that already gleamed. Cooks orchestrated breakfast like a symphony. Helena intercepted her in the foyer, tablet in hand. Madam's in the war room. She wants you now. The war room was a windowless chamber behind the library, its walls lined with screens and maps. Vivian stood at the center, cane planted like a flag, dictating to two assistants who typed furiously. A holographic globe spun slowly, ports glowing red. Shanghai's delayed, she said without turning. Reroute through Singapore, and tell Victor his little games end today. Elara's stomach tightened. The feather was a love note, Vivian finished. Victor's flair for drama. He thinks fear is leverage. She pivoted, blind eyes finding Elara's face with eerie precision. Rule 7. Fear is a currency. Spend it wisely, or it bankrupts you. The screens flickered. A live feed showed Victor in a glass office downtown, pacing, phone to his ear. His voice crackled through speakers. Find out who she really is. Dig until you hit bone. Vivian's smile was winter. He's late to the party. I dug your bones the night I met you. She gestured to a chair. Sit. Today, you take the stage. The plan unfolded like a chess master's endgame. Victor controlled 30% of Blackthorn shares, enough to challenge Vivian's majority if he swayed the board. His weapon, doubt. Was Elara real? A fraud? A gold digger? Vivian's counter, proof through performance. Elara would attend the annual shareholders' gala that night, not as a prop, but as the future. You'll speak, Vivian said. 10 minutes. On the biodegradable patent. Make them see dollars in dirt. She slid a folder across. Memorize, then burn. Elara spent the day in the war room, assistants drilling her on projections, competitors, market gaps. Numbers became stories. A patent that turned shipping waste into profit. Oceans cleaner, margins fatter. By afternoon, she could recite margins in her sleep. Rosa brought Tempest to the courtyard for a final ride. Elara cantered figure eights, the mare's hooves drumming confidence into her bones. At dusk, the gala preparations began. Stylists descended like benevolent locusts, hair coiled into an elegant chignon, makeup subtle but lethal. The gown, midnight blue, backless, sapphires at her throat like captured stars. Helena adjusted the hem with a pin. Don't trip. The board eats clumsiness. Thomas drove them in the rolls, Vivian beside Alara, cane across her lap like a sword. Rule 8, she murmured as the city lights blurred past. When they stare, let them. Eyes are just unpaid consultants. The venue was a skyscraper ballroom, glass walls framing the city like a crown. Shareholders mingled, champagne flutes catching light like prisms. Victor held court near the bar, his smile a shark's. He spotted them, excuse me's trailing as he cut through the crowd. Grandmother, he said, kissing Vivian's cheek with theatrical warmth. And the mysterious Alara. Ready for your debut? Alara met his gaze. Born ready. The MC called the meeting to order. Vivian took the podium first, voice steady as granite, outlining record profits, new ventures. Then, and now, my granddaughter, Alara Blackthorne, on our green initiative. Silence fell, thick as velvet. Alara walked the length of the room, heels clicking like a metronome. She didn't look at Victor. Didn't need to. The podium felt like home. She spoke without notes. 10 minutes became 12 as she wove data into destiny. Patents pending in 40 countries, partnerships with governments, a future where Blackthorne led the charge against waste. She ended with a slide, projected profits soaring, oceans healing. Applause thundered. Victor's face was stone. He approached as she stepped down. Impressive, he said, voice low. But blood tests don't lie. Vivian's cane tapped forward. They do when you bribe the lab, darling. She produced a document, sealed, notarized. Alara's DNA matches my son's, filed this morning. Your little feather stunt? Child's play. Victor's smile cracked. This isn't over. It is for tonight, Vivian said. Go home, Victor. Lick your wounds. He left without another word, the crowd parting like water. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, Vivian joined Alara. You were magnificent. Alara's hands trembled, adrenaline ebbing. Was any of it real? The DNA? Real enough to shut him up. Vivian's laugh was soft. Truth is a tool, child. You wielded it well. Below, the city sparkled, indifferent. Alara thought of Marcus, probably pacing their apartment, the ring box unopened on his nightstand. She thought of the bus stop, the cold, the woman who'd whispered salvation. What happens now? She asked. Vivian's hand found hers. Now you choose. Stay and build, or leave and burn brighter elsewhere. Blackthorne blood or not, your family. Alara looked at the sapphires, then at the horizon. The woman at the bus stop had wanted justice. The woman on the balcony wanted more. I'll stay, she said, but on my terms. Vivian's grip tightened. That's my girl. Months later, Marcus saw her on the news. Alara Blackthorne, keynote speaker at a global summit, her name in lights. He called, texted, showed up at the estate gates. Thomas turned him away each time. The last visit, Alara watched from a window as Marcus stood in the rain, shouting her name. She didn't go down. Some doors, once closed, stayed locked. Victor tried once more, a hostile takeover bid, whispers in boardrooms. Alara crushed it with a single presentation, her voice steady, numbers sharper than knives. He vanished after that, rumors of a quiet retreat to Europe. Alara never wore the wedding ring again. She melted it down, had it recast into a tiny key. It opened a drawer in her new office, CEO in training, Vivian's right hand. Inside, the black feather, preserved in glass. A reminder. Fear was currency. She'd learned to mint her own. Some nights, she walked the gardens alone, Tempest grazing nearby. The hedge maze no longer hid shadows. She'd mapped every turn. At the center, a bench waited, the same style as the bus stop, but carved from marble. She sat sometimes, remembering the woman who'd whispered destiny. Vivian joined her once, cane tapping softly. Proud of you, she said. But don't get comfortable. Power's a hungry thing. Alara smiled. Good. I'm starving. The city lights blinked below, a constellation of possibilities. Alara Blackthorne, granddaughter, heir, architect of her own empire, stood at the edge of it all, no longer pretending. She was home.